start with a question of terminology, if you don't mind. We've been calling these onshore licenses Pogos to differentiate from a Pogo. What are you calling them?
Well, we coined the word Philippine offshore gaming operations, so we call them Pogos. For the illegals, we call them no-goes.
Right. And what about the new onshore licenses in the Philippines?
That one we just, if it's we e-games, and I guess the one that we have approved so far and that might be implemented late this month or early next year, they're called live shots.
Live shots.
Yes.
Okay, and first of all, will these new licenses, will they be available only in the Philippines, or will somebody in the Philippines be able to offer services to other Southeast Asian countries?
Right now, we just have them only in the Philippines.
So just in the Philippines?
Yes.
Okay. And will there be any requirements for the locals to play online? Is there an age limit, income?
Oh, yes. For the casino-based online gaming, like what we call the live shots, for example, in Soler, we are very, very strict that only the VIP players that are in their player tracking system are registered with them will be able to play. No minors or any banned personality will be allowed to play. And this is just in the Philippines at this point in time.
Okay. And so far, Soler has been approved. Have the other land-based operators been approved?
Yes, if I remember it correctly, I think Okada, also COD, City of Dreams, and the one in Subic have applied. The one in Subic has also been approved, and they're still testing their software because we're very, very careful that we are able to, one, regulate fully, not only for revenues, but also because we don't want people who are not qualified and who are not allowed by law to play should be able to play.
Okay, and what kind of measures are you putting in place to make sure that responsible gambling and know your customer and all of these protocols are actually in place?
We do have our manpower in the. We do have our enforcement and monitoring group. It's a huge one, and they are posted in all of the casinos, and they're posted in the different stations where this would be allowed, and they have been trained on how to regulate and how to monitor bets. And for example, the ones that are in the casinos, if they're not in their player tracking system, they're not allowed to bet. So when we see the reports and people are allowed to bet, even if they're not VIP players with minimum bets, then there would be penalties that would be imposed on the casino.
And what will the cost be of getting one of these licenses?
It's I don't know. We have an application fee of I think 100,000 pesos, but then we have the share from the GGR. I think it's about 25% of the GGR, which is normal in some other, like in the slot machines that we have in the casinos.
Okay, so a revenue share of 25% of GGR. Is there a separate tax?
No. For the casinos, for example, the BI, by law, the BIR can charge them 5% franchise tax on GGR, and that would cover all taxes.
Right. So they'll pay 25% of GGR and a 5% franchise tax to BIR.
Except for personal taxes, like taxes on the salaries of people, corporate taxes, etc. But all other taxes would be covered by the 5% franchise tax.
Okay. And are these licenses, I think we covered this slightly, but are they open to all land-based casinos in the Philippines?
Excuse me, can you repeat that?
Are all of the land-based casinos in the Philippines able to apply?
Yes, and they would have to qualify by submitting all of the requirements that are, that we have to impose. For example, just so we could fulfill our duties as a regulator and responsible gaming and other requirements. But it is very important that, one, there's no proliferation. Two, that the bets are fair and that they're protected, and 3, that the proper appropriate revenues are collected.
Okay. So when you say no
And of course,
proliferation,
AMLA, anti-money laundering provisions and regulations and laws are properly implemented.
so when you say no proliferation, do you mean that there will be a cap on the number of licenses?
They can only, if it's this online gaming in casinos, then only the ones that have casinos are able to would be able to or would be allowed to engage in this kind of a product.
And outside of the casinos, I know DFNN has a license as a platform provider. Are there more openings for licenses of that kind?
Right now, we only have 2 approved ones. It's part of the e-games. It's like sports betting, but we're still awaiting for the e-sabong, for example. You know what cockfighting is? We're
Yes.
still awaiting the approval of the Office of the President. We have made our recommendations, and they're still studying it.
This is to allow cockfighting online.
Yes.
I understand that's very popular in the Philippines, no?
Yeah, it is, because it's one of our, actually, it's like a national sport to us.
Right. Okay. And what about the companies who are providing services to the land-based casinos? Will they be required to get a license as well?
I do not. Would you give an example on what kind of company that would be?
They have a company providing gaming content, for example, providing the games. Do they have to be licensed in the Philippines or?
Or I don't think so, but the games have to be approved by us if they're going to be played in the casinos, and then they are of course subjected to the verifications like the GLI thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of my next questions as well, the technical thing. So they will require GLI
Oh
or
yes,
some
yes.
kind of
This
accreditation.
is to protect the players.
Okay. And what about here's another technical question for you. What about the servers, the actual computer servers? Do they have to be housed within the casino, or can
Yes.
they have to be
No,
within the casino?
yes, because that is where our monitors are.
Okay. If I could move on just a little bit to cover the Pogo sector. We've had quite a few businesses have not started up operations again after the pandemic. What would you say to them to encourage them to stay in the Philippines?
Well, I think it's getting better. For example, us, even if we've been closed for almost 7, 8 months, when we opened up in September, it was kind of slow, but in October and November, it was really good, so that we were able actually to meet all of our revised targets. I think by the year end, we should be able to come up with a positive bottom line, and we'll probably be making 33 to 34 billion pesos in spite of having been opened only for about 4 months, 5 months at the most, and then operations are off and on depending on the classification of our area by the IATF, the health issues, and then whenever there's a detected possible case, we have to close down, we have disinfect. But I think that we will be making a little bit of a profit too. And in 2021, we see that there's so many other options that we can go into. So I think starting the second quarter of 2021, we'll be doing probably as well as what we did in 2019.
How many Pogo operators have restarted their business after?
There are about 35 now,
That's
with about
35.
138 service providers.
Okay. I'm starting to get quite a few questions coming in from the audience, so I might sort of ask one or two of those if you don't mind.
I hope I
have
can
one
answer
here.
all of them.
Yes. Somebody's asking, who will be processing the payments if they're using credit cards to play?
In Pogos? Are they
No, not the
actually?
Pogos. I think these are for the new ones, the live shots.
They're in the casinos, because they have to register there, and we have the know your client aspect of it. They can only play if they are considered or classified as VIP players in the casinos, and they are already in their player tracking system.
Okay, so that you have to physically deposit funds with the casino to play?
Yes,
Or?
yes, the casinos will be responsible for that.
Okay. And I have another one. Somebody was asking, how many Pogos were there before the pandemic? You've just mentioned that there are 35 left. Why
61.
61 before? And what was the main reason for them leaving the Philippines, do you think?
I guess one of them is manpower requirement because foreign travel, and restrictions on people coming in and people leaving, etc., from their countries to our country. That is one of the major problems. The other one is we've been the Pogos have been under close scrutiny by the Internal Revenue Bureau, and you know how people are afraid of the IRS or the BIR in the Philippines. But that's getting stabilized now. This is the reason why we have, out of the 35, there are actually some new ones, and there's still about 4 applications for new licenses. So it's just, I think, because of also the pandemic, we had to close them down. And although recently in August they were classified as BPOs, they were able to operate on a 50% capacity. That might not be profitable from some of the smaller ones.
Okay. And where are the new licenses requests coming from? Are they coming from Europe, Asia?
Yes, we are focusing on other countries beyond the ASEAN and beyond Asia. And we think that we might be able to penetrate the cockfighting arena in the South American countries and maybe southern part of the United States, but that would be probably in 1 or 2 years from now. But
Okay.
we've been quite busy trying to get into the other markets.
Okay. Where do you see the most potential? Do you see the most potential maybe in South America or?
Yes, I think we have for the cockfighting, for the isabong. I think South America is good. Horse racing probably in the United States, and then dog racing probably in Ireland or in the UK.
Okay. I have another question here. Somebody is asking you if you could please define what's within the new license. Who are the players for this new license? Is it the expatriates, local Filipinos, or overseas foreign workers?
Not the overseas foreign workers, but the ones that are already playing in the casinos, the ones that are regarded as like I said, VIPs, and the ones that are already in the player tracking system, they can play. If they're not there, then they'll have to apply, and then they
Okay.
have to, I think, deposit a minimum amount, and they can only play using minimum bets.
And they have to be within the Philippines. They have to be resident
Yes,
in the Philippines legally as
yes,
well. So no
because if
exception. Mm.
no, because if it's going to be, they'll be accepting offshore, then they'll have to have another license for a Pogo.
Okay, that's great. And you mentioned that DFNN has a license. You mentioned another company has also been approved. Can you
Actually,
tell
it's IEST, which is, I
us?
think, and owned by BFNN. Yes.
Yes. And the other company is?
Um, what is it? It's, oh, I forgot. It's like Oriental something.
Oh, okay. And what kind of market potential do you see? I mean, how big do you think this potential online market is?
I think it's bigger than the ones that we have now. That, that houses that have brick and mortar um, situation, because then they're able to reach wherever there's internet. People are able to bet for as long as they're qualified. And this is the reason why in these games we have facial recognition, because we have a photo of the people who are registered with the casinos. And so when they do bet using their telephones or mobile phones, there has to be a facial recognition before they can place their bets. So
Okay.
we're really very careful. We do not want anybody just to bet. We just want those who can afford to do so and who are not banned by law to bet should be able to play.
Okay. And can they use credit facilities that they have with the casinos?
Yeah, I think the casinos will handle that, but right now I think they have PayMaya, this GCash or something like that, and they can do that for as long as the casinos are able to monitor and are able, and that we are able to track down all of the bets. It doesn't matter if it's in cash and credit card or some other some other instrument.
Okay. I have somebody else asking whether the customer has to physically go to the property to actually withdraw funds, if they're lucky.
That one, I think at the moment, yes.
Right. Okay. So I suppose that's a bit of an impediment, isn't it, really, for them to be able to play online?
Yes, but it's also necessary for regulation purposes.
Okay. And will these live shots be available on mobile phones?
I think so, yes.
What about other kinds of payment methods? Would you consider e-wallets, for example?
We've been looking into that, but it's actually up to the operators, the owners of the casinos, because they're the one at risk. For example, for us, for as long as a bet is registered, the government automatically gets a share. Whether the operator is able to collect it or not, that would be not our problem.
Okay. And if going back again to market potential, you think it could be bigger than the actual bricks and mortar. Can you give us any figures? Have you done any estimates?
No, we haven't, because I'm still just focusing on, it would be good to collect revenues and to stop illegal gambling, because there's a lot of illegal gambling on the social media, like the Facebook and all of that. But if we thought that if this is made available legally, then the players are more protected and we're able to do a better way of regulating it. That's what we are focusing on. Actually, it's 50% of it is to solve the illegal gaming problem that we are having now.
So I've just had another question come in, and I think you've partially answered it with your talk on illegal gaming, but somebody is asking, what was the main reason for looking into these live shots licenses, given that Pogos were doing so well?
Well, because first with the pandemic, actually very for example, as the older people who can afford to really play are not allowed to go out of their houses. Until recently, anybody 60 years old and above cannot go out. It was only about last month or 2 months ago that 65 years below 65 years old can go out. And for slot machines, this is the huge um, audience, huge portion of our players. So now, if they're able to do that, we would be able to get that market back and safer. It's due to the pandemic, and then also due to the fact that people are now really going online. I mean, everybody just wants to shop online. People wants to consult their doctors online, get their test results online, and people have saying, why can't we bet online if we are qualified? So if we are qualified, that is where we are focusing on. And that is why we're very strict in the implementation.
And we're getting inquiry as to whether or not the rules for these live shots have been published anywhere. Are they on your website? Are they accessible?
They're always on our webs. Yes, they're on our website.
So there's an actual section now known as live shots, is there, where you can go and check all of the various details. And when do you think the first bets will start being made? When do you see this going live?
Like I said, maybe later this month or early next year. They're still testing. They're still looking into, see if it will work 100% of that all of the time. And we're also looking into, do we have enough monitors? So we're still testing everything. So we just want to be careful.
Yeah. What about a company that's not a casino or one of the operating platforms involved in e-cafes in the Philippines? What about an operator from overseas somewhere? Can they come in and apply for a license?
I don't know. I don't think so, because if it's different in the Philippines. Is what is on site and offshore. They're two different. They're two different kinds of activities that are governed by different laws. So until I have something more definite or something more detailed, I cannot accurately or even legally answer that.
Okay. And just quickly on the land-based side, while we have you here, how are your casinos doing since they've opened up? They're still at very limited capacity, am I right?
Yes, we're still at the GCQ areas. It's not in the MGC ECQ areas, we're supposed to have only 50% until 60%. Right now, we're operating at 50% most of the time. But like I said, we've recovered a lot in the last 2 months, October and November. And I think we're looking at a very good month for December.
Okay, this is in the actual land-based side.
Yes.
That's excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Madam Domingo. I thought there'd be quite a few more questions for you. I think you've covered them all. I don't know if anybody else has any more questions for Madam Domingo. Nothing else, I don't think. So thank you for joining us, and we look forward to following the rollout of this exciting new category in the Philippines. So that would be good.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Sharon. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you too.